Aloha, and welcome to our second installment for Ukulele Magazine on Making the Leap. Now, in this video, we are going to go over the various C scale variations that we discussed in the article, as well as some warm-up exercises. All of these are very important in order to be able to help you get to that next level. So let's get started.
Aloha everyone. I first wanted to do a very big special thank you to Ukulele Magazine for having us here and also for being such an incredible positive force in the ukulele community. Now, we're going to be talking a little bit about scales. I know we heard about scales for the longest time. It's all about scales. So we're going to talk a little bit about why people keep saying you should know your scales and master them. And we're going to showcase a few kind of different ways of practicing them. Now, in the very first video of this three-part series, Sarah did go over the basic C scale, right? Now, not only is it good just to kind of start warming up, but the other benefits of scales is one, scales are the foundation of all of the fantastic melodies that we can create, whether we're soloing, whether we're using them for fills, or we're using them as kind of passing notes in chord changes. So there are so many great benefits of practicing and knowing your scale notes. Now, we're going to take a look at that C scale one more time. And this time we're going to shift and we're going to use our index finger on our right hand or picking hand. And we're going to do that same scale. So that C string open, second fret, we're going to still use our index on the right hand or picking hand. E string open, add the 1, 3, open, A, 2, 3. So again, same exact scale as Sarah taught in the very first part of this series. But we're going to use our index finger for all of those notes. Don't forget, all of this is in the Ukulele Magazine. This time, after every single note in the scale, we're going to alternate with our thumb on the open G string. Now, it will sound a little different if you're using a low G, and that's okay. This technique is still going to be a very good thing to have under your belt. So don't worry if it sounds a little different. That's totally okay. So we're going to play again the open C, follow with the thumb on the G, then the 2, follow with the thumb on the G, open E, follow with the G, 1 on the E, follow with the G, 3, follow with the G, open A, follow with the G, 2, follow with the G, 3, follow with the G. So again, if you can do your scale with your index, all you have to think about is then following every note with that thumb on that G. Now, the trickiest part, I feel like, when I'm first learning this variation is when we get to that third fret on that E string, because it sounds exactly like that open G. So my ear thinks something's wrong when it sounds perfect, when it's actually perfectly fine. So let's try that one more time, really slow. Open C, follow with the thumb, 2, follow with the thumb, open E, follow with the thumb, 1, follow with the thumb, 3, follow with the thumb, open A, follow with the thumb, 2, follow with the thumb, and 3. And of course you can work your way back down as well. Now, just like a lot of other exercises, we can add little variations into this as well. Especially for those of you who are a little bit more familiar with your scales, don't forget we can start adding dynamics to really start building that control. So I can start soft, Get a little bit louder. And maybe come back down. Now, another fantastic reason to work on scales is that I wholeheartedly believe you can only learn so much by reading a book or by watching, right? There's something to be said about putting the time in. And with scales, you know, again, because of what we're doing, we're going to be doing things like this throughout our whole time with this instrument. We're going to be hitting notes. We're going to be using variations of this in different chords. So we're going to start to get really familiar of how each fret feels, how using each finger, using the different strings. So it's one of the things where you can sink in thousands of hours and playing the scales and still continue to improve because of it. So it really is so important to kind of be able to, you know, watch the news, or maybe even, you know, read a Kindle while you're doing this. But there's so many things that I can't express how important it is just to put the time in. Now, talking about dynamics as well, another thing to think about, if you noticed during when I was playing, I didn't hit the G as hard as the rest of my chord, the rest of my melody in the scale. And the reason for that is if I was to keep everything at the same level, the melody starts to get drowned out. But so what I did was I focused on a nice strong scale melody, and then just almost a breeze or a whisper of that G string ringing. So it's going to sound more like this. And again, this is what, you know, we always talk about, the little things like this, the nuances that really help elevate you to that next level. It's that control, being very deliberate of how you're hitting each note when you play. Now, the next variation is something that I actually learned or practiced a bunch with on cello growing up. And what we're going to do here is we're going to hit 3 notes in a row on the scale. So that'll be the open C, the 2nd fret, and the open E. Now, right away, I'm going to give you a little hint. We're going to keep that middle finger held down on our fretting hand. The reason is we're going to come right back to it. So the grand scope of this particular exercise is that we're going to hit 3 notes in a row, take a step back and do another 3, take a step back, do another 3, etc. It's kind of like that Paula Abdul song, it's all right. So, so if I was to label, let's say, all these numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, I would be hitting 1, 2, 3, then 2, 3, 4, 3, 4, 5, 4, 5, 6, 5, 6, 7, 6, 7, 8. So that's just another way of thinking about it. So again, we have our open C, which is our C note, our D note, which is the 2nd fret, and then the open E. Then we're going to take a step back, so we're going to go back to that D, open E, 1 to the F, so that was 3. So we're going to step back, go to the open E, add the 1 for the F, 3 for the G. Good. Step back to the 1, 3, open A. And again, I'm leaving my ring finger down because we're going to come right back to it. Open A to the 2, step back, open, 2, 3. Let's try that one more time. So I'm going to try to go as slow as possible. Here we go. So we have open C, 2, open E, step back, 2, open E to the 1, step back, open E, 1, 3, step back to the 1, 3, open A, step back, 3 to the open A, to the 2, step back, open, 2, and 3. So again, eventually we want to be able to take out that space in between. So it sounds more like this. Open, 2, open E, 2, open E, 1, open, 1, 3, back to the 1, 3, open A, back to the 3, open A, 2, open A, 2, and 3. And you can see how much more melodic this is already. And again, we're just kind of breaking up the scale a little bit differently, but you can hear how much this moves like a lot of the melodies that we hear in our songs. So again, a really nice way of kind of breaking that up. And don't forget, we can add that open G in between these notes as well. And it's going to sound spectacular. It's going to sound like this. Not too bad, but the concept is there. And again, I'm focusing on having that melody ring out a little bit more than that open G. Now our third variation is we're going to be using hammer-ons and pull-offs. Now, some of you who might already be playing with hammer-ons and pull-offs, but again, the reason why we use hammer-on and pull-offs are typically for speed. Yes, you're going to get a little bit different sound as well, but for me, mainly it's when I want to add a lot of speed to it, because if I was to play the scale with every single note being hit, I'm very limited to how fast I can go. But utilizing hammer-ons and pull-offs, which I'll explain in just a second, I can go much faster because I don't have to hit every single note. And all a hammer-on is that we're getting an extra note by literally hammering our finger onto the string. So that's where the idea of seeing that hammer and just kind of smacking the string down. Now, the pull-off is literally just plucking with your left hand. Here's my right hand. I'm gonna pluck that A string with my ring finger. And that's all a pull-off is. Again, another way to get a note to ring. So when we apply it to our scales, we're gonna hit the open C. And then again, the next scale is step is our 2nd fret. So I'm gonna hit it once with my right hand, then with my left hand, I'm gonna smack it down on that 2nd fret. Now, the secret to a good hammer-on is accuracy. Yes, you do want to be a little bit, a little strong with it, but as long as you're accurate, that's where you're gonna get the most success. And by accurate, I mean, if you look really closely, my finger is so on the string itself that it's not even touching the fretboard. It's 100% on the string. If I was to miss it like this, you see how it starts to buzz if I'm kind of over the string like that? So again, open and straight on the string. For the E string, we're gonna do a double hammer-on, but we're gonna hit the E string once with our right hand, and I'm gonna do a double hammer-on. Now the secret to a double hammer-on is keeping that first finger down as we get to the second one. And again, accuracy more than anything else. And if you're having trouble with this one, try one at a time. Open, hammer the 1, little jaws action going on. And then hit the 1, hammer the 3. And then try to do both at the same time. A string, same thing, but we're utilizing the middle and ring finger for the 2 and 3. Again, accuracy, work your way up. If you're having trouble, work on one hammer-on at a time. Now for the pull-offs, we're gonna start off with a double pull-off. Not too bad. So we're gonna prep these 2 fingers first. And we're gonna make sure our ring is nice and solid. We're gonna pluck once with our picking hand. We're gonna pull off just that ring finger. And then pull off the middle. Now, although we are technically picking with these fingers, a lot of times when we have the vibration going from this initial hit, we can pretty much just let go and still get a nice, quick pull off. So it's not as strenuous as we think it is. So we're gonna prep 3 and 1, and this is gonna come in handy when we're in between these two strings. So on the E string, prepping 3 and 1, we're gonna hit it once. I'm just gonna lift off those fingers with maybe a little bit of an angle, but as you see, I'm not coming down. I'm not gonna hit that A string on accident. But just kind of letting go one at a time. And it does help if you kind of hold it a little tighter than normal so you have more room to utilize to let it go. And the C string's a little bit easier. We just have that 1 fret to worry about, that 2nd fret. We're gonna pluck it once and let go. So on the way up, we're gonna do hammer-ons. On the way back down, pull-offs. So again, there are going to be so many wonderful things you can do, and this is a great way of double dipping, practicing your pull-offs and hammer-ons as well as your scales. Now, one of my favorite exercises that I still do to this day is my 1, 2, 3, 4 exercises. And that, what I love about this is that it's again a great warm-up that I utilized with the cello growing up. And what we're going to do is what the name says, 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to hit 1, 2, 3, 4. The 1, 2, 3, 4, what I like about this one is that not only does it represent what fret we're going to hit, but how many fingers are going to be on the fretboard. So when we say 1, that means 1 on the A string. 2 is the 2nd fret, but also 2 fingers on the A string. 3 is, of course, 3rd fret and 3 fingers. 4 is 4th fret and 4 fingers. The reason why we're keeping all of those fingers down is because I want you to listen to this for a second. Can you hear the difference between this? Oh, sorry, let me start on the 1. Now compare it to so it's much easier to have these very staccato notes, right? But a lot of times, the harder parts is actually having the notes ring out for as long as possible before the next note. And how we're gonna get that is by keeping our fingers down and also really thinking about the timing of the left and the right hand hitting the string together. If I'm early with my left hand, see how it cuts off the sound? If I'm early with my right hand, again, cuts off that sound. So we try to time it so it lands and we hit it at the same time. So we're gonna do that 4 times. The second version of that is 1, 4, 3, 4. So that means 1, 1st fret, 4, all 4, 3, so drop to the 3, oop, and back to the 4. Let's try that one more time. 1, 1st fret, 4, all 4, 3, so that means we're going to drop to the 3, back to the 4. So it's going to be 1, 4, 3, 4, 1, 4, 3, 4. Not too bad. The next variation is going to be 1, 4, 2, 4. So 1, all 4. Now we're going to drop to the 2. So we're going to release 3 and 4 and back to the 4 using all 4 fingers. So let's try that together. 1, 4, 2, 4. Again, 1, 4, drop to the 2, back to 4. Nice. 1, 3, 2, 3. So we have 1. Now just the 3, drop to the 2, back to 3. Again, 1, 3, drop to 2, back to 3. Lastly, 4, 3, 2, 1. So we're going to start with all 4, hit the 4, drop to the 3, drop to 2, drop to 1. Now, this seems like a lot, but it goes by quickly. 4 times a day for each variation. I promise you, after a week, you're gonna feel so much more comfortable on your fretboard. So, and it doesn't take that long, even at a medium speed, like 1 2 3 4, 1 2 3 4, 1 2 3 4. Next one is 1 4 3 4, 1 4 2 4. 1 3 2 3. 4 3 2 1. And eventually we can go a little bit faster, or we can even add dynamics to that, like start slow, or not slow but soft, and again, it's a fantastic way to get all of your 4 fingers going on your fretting hand, working on that coordination between the left and right hand, thinking about speed, thinking about tone that you're getting, making sure you're accurately on the string. So there's so many fantastic things about these exercises. Again, we can't thank you enough for joining us. Sarah is going to come and now go over your next steps.
Let's finish our warm-up now with some picking exercises. Now, I find it's best to really work one hand at a time. So I want us to really just focus on our picking hand. We can add chords in later, but just having all open strings for now. You'll find that you'll get less frustrated if you work one hand at a time. So for our very first pattern, what we're going to do is your thumb is actually going to alternate between the C and the G, and it's going to go backwards. So just practice doing that for a little bit. Yeah? Not too bad. Now you want to make sure that the motion with your picking isn't a bounce, that you're not pulling your hand away like this. I'm over exaggerating it, of course. You want it to really be just your thumb is here and it's very gently coming down on the string. And I'm actually kind of bending from this knuckle as opposed to picking like this. It really is this kind of motion for me, for both of them. And you want to try to get a nice tone out of it. Then we're going to take our index and our middle, and they're going to be assigned to the E string and the A string. They will only play these 2 strings, and the order is going to be your thumb first on the C, and then on the A string with your middle, and then the E string. So keep in mind, again, that we are doing that thumb on the C first, then the A string, and then the E string. If you need to practice, just like how we did with just our thumb, just practice with the middle and the index doing doing A, E, A, E. Again, notice how small this movement is that I'm doing. I'm not picking like this and pulling my hand away. You want to keep your hand close by so you can be as efficient as possible. Now let's try adding in our thumb, A, E, move to the G, thumb, A, E, C string, A, E, G string, thumb, thumb. Nice. Once you start to get comfortable with this, you can start adding in chords. But again, try to practice this with all open strings first for a chunk of time before you start throwing chords in, because now you're asking your brain to think about what chords are happening next and knowing when to change. But I like starting with my chords, just doing 2 chords I know really well, like C. Then switch to maybe G7. And try to keep everything nice and even. All of the notes, you don't want to cut them off. Sorry, I messed up. There we go. Back to the C. If you feel comfortable, you can speed up, of course. This I love because you can really kind of really focus and feel this hand and try to get it to relax as you play. I always liked practicing in front of a mirror because it really forced me to look at this hand, especially if I had, all open strings. Really look at your hand and really try to focus on keeping it as relaxed as possible. Look at how it just looks like my fingers are barely moving, right? And you want that to be how it looks for you when you're going through this picking pattern and the next one that we're about to go over. All right, this next one, we are still going to be using the same 3 fingers, but we're changing up how we're using them a little bit. So if you look in the article, we actually have it all tabbed out for you. And so we're actually going to start with the G string this time. I feel like this particular picking exercise does sound a little bit better with low G, but you can use it with a high G uke, which I will be doing today. So we're actually starting, and you're going to have these 3 fingers are going to actually kind of move in groups. So I have my thumb on the G, my index on the C, my middle finger on that E string. And then once I've gone and played the G string, and then the E, and then the C. So let's try that again together. G, and then E, C. Again, G, E, C. We're going to take that grouping and you're going to hop over to the next 3 strings where your thumb is now based on the C string. And it's going to be the same pattern. Thumb, middle, index, or C, A, E. And then you come back up. Do the same grouping again, but with your thumb based on that G. Move it down. And I'm pausing right now. Eventually we won't, but it's helpful when you're getting used to moving that whole group. Move it down. Move it back up. Move it back down. Now let's try it without the pause in the middle. What's going to end up happening is that you're going to be playing that C string twice, 2 times in a row. You'll hear what I mean in just a second. Here we go. Thumb, middle, index. Move it. Thumb, middle, index. Back up. Back down. Thumb, thumb. I feel like this one is tricky in the beginning just because you're playing that C note twice, and that can sometimes throw off your ear. If you need to at first, you can look down at your hand. But I do recommend, again, looking at your hand in a mirror instead if you can, because that also means you're not used to practicing doing this. You want to be able to practice looking straight ahead and be able to know where those strings are. And for me, practicing in front of a mirror really helps because you can see your hands, but yet you're not looking down all the time. And eventually, your muscle memory and the feel of your strings will become second nature. You can also do this with chords, just like we did with the first one, once you feel comfortable. So using C and G7 as my warm-up, I might do... You can, of course, speed it up or slow it down, and I do recommend trying to do these with a metronome as well. One thing about ukulele that I think is so funny is that many people avoid the metronome, but it really is a wonderful tool. And if you have not had a chance to work with one, I recommend doing that for your C scales as well as for these picking patterns, because you have to work on that muscle memory too in order to ensure that your timing is spot on. We hope you've enjoyed the second installment on Making the Leap. Craig and I are very excited about part 3, and we hope you will join us. If you'd like to learn more about us or learn more from us, please follow us on social media or join our online ukulele school with ArtistWorks.